New York, 1976, the City Centre Theatre, a packed house. Monty Python's Flying Circus is appearing. We are in mid-sketch. Whistler is being played by John Cleese. Shaw is being played by Michael Palin. The Prince of Wales is being played by Terry Jones. I am playing Oscar Wilde. And I have just dried. I cannot remember the next line. The entire theatre waits. And as they wait, so do I, for that damned line to enter my head. It refuses to come. I am beginning to break out into a sweat. The line just won't come. John Cleese shuffles uncomfortably and mutters, "Get on with it." Thinking this is a prompt, I proclaim loudly, "Get on with it." The reaction of the audience gives me the definite impression this is not my line. It's at moments like this when one thinks, oh, fuck it, does it really matter? What are we all here for? Are we predestined to take the paths we follow? And sure enough, as though to prove a point, I was actually in Los Angeles a year later. We extinguished our cigarettes and fastened our seat belts, and then did it again in French and Spanish, as the first-class lounge of the mighty British Airways Boeing 747 banked sharply to the left. Captain Chet Bigglesberg's crisp Oxford drawl slid powerfully through the intercom. "Listen, y'all. What ho? How are y'all? Anyway, jolly good. We'll all be, like, sort of landing and things in sort of your, Los Angeles in approximately sort of 15 minutes from this point-style moment in time, instance-wise, y'all. That is to say, landingization will be completed sort of, in a bit, as of now, y'all. Toodle-pip, sort of what? Ho? Click. Frightfully sorry, y'all. Click." The enormous bar glid to a halt, and I and my financial adviser, Major Sloane, were ushered from our divans by the now nude Cypriot debutante air hostess. She offered us our disembarkation executive foot modules, vinylized nylonette uppers, hand-stitched onto personalized red carpetlet soles, a touching modern reminder of a never-existent old-world charm. In our 64-foot, four-seater Cadillac, we executived off downtown for the premiere of Muhammad Ali's film, The Greatest, an excellent movie, a damn sight better than Jaws or Saturday Night Fever, which was rejected by black and white audiences alike for simply telling the truth. Or could the distributors have found its portrayal of parasitical white middlemen uncomfortably astute? The select open-air reception afterwards at the vast Plaza de los Reganos drew a huge crowd of spectators, all eager to see the champ arrive stylishly by helicopter. All eyes gazed heavenwards as Muhammad Ali, in a typically flamboyant gesture, walked quietly in from the back and mingled with the guests. He was soon spotted by hordes of film, television, and press cameramen who would have made personal contact impossible had he not politely ignored them. Like any decent actor, he simply wanted to know how the film had gone. As at all film premieres, most people were standing around trying to look as though they knew the star so well that they didn't even need to acknowledge his presence, and merely peered around, wondering whether anyone had noticed them. 5 people were so famous they didn't even need to turn up, and their vacant spaces were stared at with awe. There was going to be Sammy Davis Jr., and over there would have been Frank Sinatra, if his trichologist hadn't ordered him to sit at home in a chair. The other boxing aficionados were so indescribably famous they had to hire 3 separate stadiums to be absent at. I have never seen so much awe. I left them all to it, and congratulated the man himself on a great performance. He knew that I meant what I had said, and we sat down and chatted for 20 minutes. I found him kind, perceptive, and wise, and unlike some who pass for intelligent, capable of listening to others. He must have seen something in me, too, otherwise I wouldn't have lasted a full 20 minutes. We talked about religion, black and gay liberation, and the fear that drives man to destroy man. Certainly one of the most fascinating conversations in my life. But the gin that had given me the courage to talk to him in the first place also made me completely forget everything that we said. What a wasted opportunity. Sorry, everybody, but Major Sloane is trying to arrange a return bout on more equal terms now that I'm back in training. I thanked the greatest. We shook hands, and I walked back into the crowd. My head was buzzing. Everything went beige with little patches of russet, and I was aware of a sensation of violent speed as I was crushed by gigantic G-forces against the granite steps of the David Niven Memorial, which seemed to be hurtling out into the black abyss of space. This is no time for musing, I mused. Suddenly it seemed that a hole had been torn in the very fabric of space. Was I being sucked into a black hole rent in the great donut of eternity? Don't be silly, I thought. Of course you are. It was almost as if I was being drawn along a powerful tractor beam towards some unearthly giant starship. As luck would have it, I was. Well, this is a turn-up, I said to myself, thinking, what a strange thing to say. It must have been my upbringing which brought about my following action, for at moments of great stress, I always think of people hanging in trees. I threw up. Small bits of tomato skin, sweet corn husks, and diced carrot moved out into an elliptical orbit around the sun. There before me was an immense cylindrical structure, oblate in cross-section, 9.2 kilometers long, 1.92 kilometers across its longer elliptical axis, and 1.56 kilometers down its shorter elliptical axis. Its further end seemed to be glowing with an eerie incandescent power, and the brown, fluted, longitudinal striations made it look for all the world like a lighted Peter Stuyvesant that had just been gently sat on by someone wearing slightly damp corduroy trousers, but twice as sinister. The force beam in which I was trapped was still drawing me and the minuscule portion of what had once been Los Angeles into an entrance bay in what would have been the middle section of a filter tip, if it had actually been a cigarette as described and not a bloody great spaceship. As usual in these situations, I now lost consciousness, being overcome with horror at the thought of all the descriptive detail that would otherwise have been needed. Everything went black. Absolutely everything. I couldn't see a damn thing but utter blackness, until suddenly I woke up out of my extremely well-thought-out insensibility and found myself on the bridge of the starship, which, as luck would have it, was completely indescribable. I slowly became aware of a strange group of totally unimaginable, my luck was still holding, creatures crowded round a cluster of scanning screens. To my astonishment, I saw that they were watching fictional reruns from my encounter with puberty, what we doctors refer to as Chapter 2.